All right, welcome everybody to the February 16th meeting of the Board of Directors of Montessori Peaks Academy. Uh, we are starting at 6:32-ish. You want to take a roll call?
Yes. I have
It,
Jack Llewellyn, Becky Springstead, Brandon Smith, Lisa Myers, Brittany Horseman, Robin Morrissey, Beth McDonald, Carmen Center, and Christina Grant.
sounds good.
A
Thanks
quorum is
everybody.
present. Yeah, sorry. A quorum is present.
Thanks everybody for being here. Hope everybody's stayed warm, hadn't had any too many disasters. I went down in my office building today to mail, and little did I know when I stepped off the elevator there was, I don't know, 8 inches of water. So I did what any reasonable person would do. I pushed closed door and went back to my office, and 4 hours later when I came down it was all taken care of. So and it could be worse. We could be in Texas where it actually is bad and they absolutely cannot deal with it. So you can always remind yourself it can be worse. um, kind of has been our practice. Number one, want to have everybody take note of the mission statement, but number two, also to just pay tribute to where we're at. Um, you know, uh, Maybe more than most of y'all know, or some of you. Brian's gone through a lot the last few weeks, and the staff and the teachers and just everybody did an amazing job to keep us where we're at. And it really is a testament to the leadership and the quality of the folks that we have at the school, and I just never want one of these meetings to go by without us acknowledging that. So with that, does anyone have community comments? And by the way, Robin, that looks like an Emmy right behind you. You look at it quickly. Any community comments?
I think all of the teachers deserve Emmys, is my community comment.
All right, then with that, let's move into the principal's report. And just so everybody knows, I kind of put together the agenda before I see, or at least before I really read Brian's report. And so to the extent that things overlap, let's go ahead and deal with them as they come up. And if we have to move past things later on, that's fine. So anyways, with that, Brian, the floor is yours.
All right. Well, I'm going to share my screen here real quick. Yeah, I put a lot of stuff in here. Amy and I were talking about that. So as things come up, we can either push it to later in the agenda or take care of it as it comes up in my report. But tons of celebrations. Hey, we're all back together. So all the quarantine students and staff, we're all back today. It was a good feeling. It's good to have them back. Especially, specials has been hit hard. Every time we've had 4 quarantines in the building, and out of 4 of those, 3 of those, many of the specials teachers have had to go into quarantine. So, hey, we're back. Everyone did a fabulous job. I mean, we juggled all we could. Last week was not perfect by all means to cover different things. We were just extremely short-staffed, but the resiliency is still there. And I think that's worth the celebration, that we're almost a year into this disruption, and I just think we keep getting a little bit better and a little bit better and a little bit better. Doesn't mean we ignore the fact of the situation we're in, but we just keep getting better. And I'll try to show a balance of that along my discussion here tonight. So yeah, I just can't thank the staff enough for the things that we encounter on a daily basis. So we'll start there. National, Jeffco, all that stuff. Really, the hot topic right now is remote or no remote. I think Jeffco is strongly headed into centralized remote programs. That's what they've communicated out. And I get it. We're in the same boat. It's hard to be two masters of that and be good at both. And as public confidence gains in either our vaccinations or health protocols, or we're starting to see the positivity rate go down, parent confidence and student confidence is coming back. So that's an ever-changing story, and I'll dive into that a little bit more. The other thing, part of the governor's plan for restarting schools, I mean, we've always really been open, other than being closed in December. This is really a non-issue for us. We've just been open as much as we could. They did offer kind of this home testing kit to educators. Some schools have really jumped on it. I've talked with our front office. We don't feel we need to test in our school, because when we look at all of our contact tracing, we look at all of our situations, it's really our staff has been dedicated to the cause. And that just seemed a lot more unnecessary process than we wanted to dive in. But there is this home testing thing, and a staff member could sign up for it unbeknownst to us. And so far, I've not heard of any teachers taking that on. It's like a series of home tests that you can take. But if you ever wind up with a positive in a home test, you still have to go get a PCR test anyway. So it didn't really gain much traction with us, but other charters, at least in Jeffco in the state, this was a big deal to them. But I think for us, we have trust in ourselves as a staff to do the right thing, and it's worked out for us. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of talk going on in the charter world. I think JCSC the other night, and then Brittany, maybe you can help me out here, just kind of batted the ball around on kind of the current topics of, school finance, remote, no remote, what's the impact of COVID, what's worked during this time, what's not worked at schools. So, Brittany, do you want to add any more? All right, moving on.
Sorry, I couldn't unmute.
Oh, okay.
My comments are more regarding the financial discussion at
Okay.
JCSC than anything else.
No worries. We'll pin that for later. The annual charter school virtual conference is coming up here, so it's in a couple weeks, and I think, Amy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think we got everybody signed up that wanted to.
Yep, we're all good.
Okay. The way I build this principals report now is if you want to dive in a little deeper ahead of time, that way I don't have to spend a ton of time going in depth. You can bring forward more questions. I'm trying to focus in on a few key areas tonight. And I think remote learning update is definitely a key area. I sent out a survey to our remaining remote families. And here's our numbers right now. So if you notice on here, I have these three groups. As of today, we have 14 students in upper elementary, 14 students in lower elementary. These are all remote. And then we have 7 kindergartners plus 1 preschooler, so for a total of 8 in pre-K and K, and makes a grand total of 36, which is way down from where we were around 70, 80 when we started. And then for the ever-changing landscape of this, after March 1st, 8 students out of the 36 will be back into the building. Every family's had a different reason to come back at different times. We try to do the quarterly bump like we had planned, but life changes. We like our families. We do the best we can to support them. And so that'll be down to 28 after March 1st, and who knows by the end of the year. So you can kind of get the sense of the declining remote requests, things like that. The early information about remote learning with our survey that just went out to parents tonight, it only went to those families. Last I checked, we had about 11% that had weighed in. About half the families have weighed in at this point that I can tell. I'll check on that a little bit more with Veronica tomorrow. But it's pretty overwhelmingly, I think it was about 89% want to return, 11% said remote. I threw in a second question that if we don't offer remote as a school, would they look at Jeffco centralized program? And some parents did say yes. So it's all preliminary data at this point. Once that window closes next week, I will push this information on. But I think this is something that we're going to have to talk about. It's a conversation that ties into finance committee, and it ties into a lot of other areas, because what I struggle with is if it's a family that's been with us for a long time and we can't give them remote, obviously we lose that family. But at the end of the day, we're a business, and there's got to be a certain number of students that would be in remote all year. That was the request. They're going to do remote. It's got to be all year. You can't bounce back and forth from in-person to out, things like that. So I'm not sure we're ready for this conversation just yet without knowing the thoughts and views of our families. I just thought surveying parents in January, even early February, seemed a little soon. But now that the vaccinations are in full swing for staff, again, this landscape's changing fast. So I see this as a really cornerstone conversation in March. Staff, yeah, vaccination update. I went in on Saturday, and this was through Kaiser. A lot of us in Jeffco use Kaiser as our insurance. Not all of us, but a good portion of us. And it seems like Children's was kind of doing it slowly. They got our front office done and some other staff members done. But as far as mass vaccinations, seemed like Kaiser was able to make this happen. When I went out to the Lone Tree clinic on Saturday, a lady, when I was talking to her, said they were trying to vaccinate Kaiser themselves, 13,000 school teachers or school staff this weekend alone. So it was a pretty aggressive goal. I don't know if they made that, but we do have I wouldn't say a large percentage, but it is starting to be used and by our staff at a pretty quick rate here. So we'll see how it goes and see how the second round goes. We do have some concerns about the second vaccination shot does add a little bit of a punch to your immune system. And for some people, it's a couple-day recovery. So we kind of have to brace for that, possibly, as we could have some staff out come about the second week of March with that. But it will be a small disruption for what I feel is, again, increased confidence in a big gain. So that's well underway. I did not think it would roll out that quickly after February 8th, but it sounds like they've held true to that plan. Friday, I'm just going down the list here in the staff. Oh, so nice to have an in-service day that we could actually dive in, talk about some things. And one of the things that the whole staff jumped in on was our social emotional learning. We all felt that this is important work. especially due to the disruption of the pandemic. Hey, you're in school, you're out of school, you're in school, you're out of school. Just caused some anxiety through kids. We've seen some different behaviors from it, there's no doubt. And so we just wanted to look at what might be a resource that we can add to Montessori, but not replace how the Montessori classrooms are built around community and all that work. We just wanted our toolbox a little bit bigger. So I added these links. We did kind of an hour introduction and talked about how it works and looked at some of the resources together as a staff, and it had some positive feedback on it. So in March, we're going to focus on respect, and we're going to dabble with some of the tools. And Tina and I talked today, we want to do it in the most authentic way. Anytime we bring supplemental curriculums into a Montessori school, we have to understand that's the key word there, supplemental. And they have their place and use, and then you go back to the core. And same thing with reading, same thing with math, things like that. So it's a nice start. If you want to see more actual videos, things like that, what I'll probably have to do is create kind of like, I can call the company and set up kind of a preview account for a couple weeks for you to check certain things out. And so let me know if you're interested in that. But what it is they're short video clips on a whole variety of themes. And respect is one, empathy, you name it. It's in there, and they keep adding more. And so it's a Jeffco approved curriculum as well. Douglas County's in on it. I believe Cherry Creek and a few others. All the biggies have said base education's got it going on. And what you hear in the videos are students of similar age to the kids in class talking about these topics and what it means to them, questions they have around it. So it's kind of a springboard to add a little bit of depth and conversation in classrooms around a wide variety of topics. Plus, this lines up with our UIP. The SAC committee put 2 social emotional learning goals in the UIP. We'll talk as a committee next, and then for the March board meeting, we'll ask for an approval on our UIP, and we'll then submit it to the state after that. So it's pretty exciting. We're taking our time to do it right, since we have the time to do it. Also on Friday, we jumped into some data, things like that. Now, I will go down to that here in a minute, but I just want you to understand that teachers still need a lot of time to do their work, adjust, plan, reorganize. But I thought it was my job to do a deep data dive and show them some of our successes. And in fact, let's just jump in that right now. One of the things is I like to dive into the data and pull out other metrics that you don't see in surface level reports. And so let me kind of just walk you through this. So the question is, are we static as a school? Have we gone backwards as a school? Or have we actually improved as a school since the pandemic has hit? Well, we're missing our spring data. So the best we can do is compare ourselves to fall of 2019, to fall 2020, and then to winter 2020 and winter 2021. So what you see here, let me actually increase this here so you can see it. Okay. And this is MAP. So this is what they call the RIT scale. It's time-tested scale. It's been around for about 40 years, heavily researched. I've used it my entire career, almost, except for the first 3 years. So I've used NWA or MAP testing in some form or another for about 25 years. So it's been around. It's on a learning continuum. And of course, kinders kind of start at the lower end of the numbers, and as it goes all the way up to high school, the numbers grow and increase. So they're all based on a growth. So what is the average growth of a student based on where they fell in the fall to where they should be in winter and then in the spring, and you just see this perpetual growth all the time. So you see 2019 fall, they're all just numbers. But then winter, I color coded it, and we're supposed to hit intervals of growth. Well, red means we did not make our expected growth. So let me show you first grade. Fall of 19 was 164, for example. Winter's 175. Well, they grew 11 RIT points, but that was probably on a expectation of, say, 12, 13, 14, somewhere in that range. So we fell short. They grew a lot, but we still fell short. So I would color that just red. We just didn't make it. But now look at second grade, 186 to 197. They grew 13 RIT points. It was green. That was our only bright spot last winter of 2020. So when I say winter of 2020, that's from like December to January of 2020, so pre-pandemic. So that was our one goal range that we met, that we actually met growth. But then you turn around to winter 2021, and all of a sudden we have a slightly different look. We met expected growth 5 out of 7 areas. Some just barely over the bar, some we did really well, but that answers our question in a weird way. How are we doing? Surprisingly, we were doing better than we were as a school wide. It may not feel that way. And when I ask teachers that, they're like kind of scratching their head like, man, I've worked so hard this year, I feel like I'm not doing enough, so how can that be? Well, again, this is average school-wide data, not individual data, not classroom data. It's all put together. So I just wanted to challenge perceptions with this, what we're feeling versus what's really happening. So there's bright spots. What I did on fall of 2020 is I wanted to compare where our students were starting at a baseline. And anything in green means they started above the previous school year. So you can kind of get a sense of where we had some highs and some lows, some flats, that's the yellow. But I want to let everybody understand that when you look at data, yes, people always want to say they're different kids. How can you compare a kindergarten class to another kindergarten class? How can you compare a 5th grade class to another 5th grade class? It's very easy. Schools are systems. Systems produce basically reliable results every year. So I've been through where I've had to, as a principal, change the course direction of a school. Well, that means the systems change. I mean, you have to do something radical to change the numbers. So, for example, when you change a full math curriculum, you throw away the old math curriculum, you grab a new math curriculum. Typically what happens is your system is now different, and you actually wind up bombing the first year because you've disrupted it so much. So you have to hold on for about a 3-year ride when you change a system in a school to show new results. So yes, schools replicate year after year. You can look back almost 20 years, 10 years on any school. If they got reliable and valid data, it's pretty easy to see the trends year after year. And if you ever see a bump or a change or an anomaly that's pretty steep and different, and that school now is on a different course, you have to ask the question, what did you do? So us as teachers and staff, we asked ourselves, what did we do to change a little bit? Now these are small changes, these are small results. We'll see what May brings, right? But it's exciting actually to see that, I think, and here's some of the theories that we have, is pandemics has caused us to tighten our focus. Anytime you tighten your focus on something, you tend to get different results. And so when classes would get pushed into quarantine, say in the spring or in December, we had to change our focus. And again, teachers just narrowed it down. They kind of threw off other distractions. That's one theory, and I like that theory. So that's good news. Reading, we saw a similar result. I don't have to spend much time on this, but you get the picture. Winter of 2020, not one grade level made expected growth. However, this winter, we made 3 of our 7, and we're starting our grades at higher levels. Well, what's the difference, Brian, between, say, first grade in fall of 19 starting at 164 and first grade, which again is a different set of kids, but remember, systems replicate results, is a 169. Well, 5-point RIT difference is 2 months of growth. Easy, maybe 3 months of growth. So this year's first graders were higher than last year's first graders. This year's third graders started higher than last year's third graders. Look at the difference, 195 to 202. That's I wouldn't call it a half a year's difference, but it's close. Maybe 4 months. So something's in the water, friends, and we're doing better than we expected. So we're going to keep moving. Some of the takeaways from our in-service was, one, we love our Tier 1 and Tier 2 reading supports through Kristen Snow. She's our reading interventionist. And she does both domains. Tier 1 are kiddos that, you know, we're concerned about, but she slides them in just for a little extra. Tier 2 kids are READ-ACT kids. Those are kids that are on a specialized read plan. And everyone across the board says we got to keep going on our interventions. Early diagnosis of a reading problem, I think, is also why we're seeing some of the data that we're seeing. So we got to keep that going. Another idea was consistent language for math. Increasing our math vocabulary so that our students understand all the different words that mean different things in the world of math. So we talked about that. And then we also talked about bringing in or talking about more of a consistent writing program. MPA's had different writing programs in the past, 6 traits, step up, the writing, different things. But it's time to revisit that conversation and talk about a consistent writing program. So those were the big takeaways. There was more, but those were some of the bigs. So yeah, lots. Doesn't mean we're out of the woods. We had some kids slide backwards. Yes, we did. But as a school as a whole, we did not slide backwards like I think some of us thought where we were. So that's good news. Any questions on that before I move on to just a few other things?
I'm glad you went through that exercise, Mr. Bryan, because I think it's really nice for everyone to see that all those long hours and extra work that they've put in really has paid off.
Yeah, and I'm glad you bring that up. To see some of the green boxes, I think also comes at the expense of really long hours and long days, and the worry of, my gosh, this pandemic could ruin my, take all my kids backwards, and that's just how teachers view the world. Is they think about their students all the time, just not in the 8 hours during a paid day, and they worry about this stuff, and then when they worry about it, they put it into planning, and then planning turns into action. But obviously this is not sustainable, and that's why we had to make those mid-year shifts, especially at lower and things like that. And I think everyone's kind of getting into a tighter, less working on the weekends, less at night routine. And so we're just trying to keep that as stable as we can, but also celebrate and question ourselves, what did we do that we want to replicate and keep doing?
Well, and Brian, I've gotten into some heated discussions with folks, because you'll get the COVID slide,
Right.
as it's referred to, is assumed as a fact for every place.
Right.
And when I try to tell people that, no, that's not the case. It's not everywhere. It's not every school. It's not every school district. And so, seeing those graphs and seeing the green bars is definitely a good thing for everybody.
We did have some concerns. One concern is our math growth at first, second, and third this year. And again, as I'm listening to our teachers, think of Montessori as so driven by the hands-on work and the material and the disruption in that last spring, this fall. The pandemic has messed with the authenticness of the materials for our curriculum. So I think we saw the effects of that, but at the same time, we saw math growth in our fourth, fifth, and sixth. Well, some of the talk centered around, well, those students technologically were able to access the curriculum much easier online than our little guys. And we had a hard time pushing out that amount of materials to the home that could replicate our Montessori environment. So yeah, we did see effects of the pandemic, but now that we know that, we have to maybe kind of double dip on some kids and kind of go, yeah, we're gonna go back to this place in their math and give them these things. And so it just kind of opened up all of our eyes about the shifts and any kind of adjustments we want to do for kids that do have some gaps in their learning from the disruption. But there's stuff to celebrate and stuff to work on equally, I felt. So, all right. Still moving on with professional goals. I said it before, it was just nice to talk and sit down and talk with staff one-on-one. Yes, they don't see me as much this year. I think they understand that us in the office, we're doing everything we can to juggle the demands of what's new, what's coming around. I mean, on a daily basis, I got 10, 15 emails just from Jeffco about all the things that they're thinking and doing. They're asking questions and in the charter. And it's just a never-changing or ever-changing environment, and our days just blow by. And I really wish we could be out in classrooms more, but teachers, they just rock it. They just know, I just hope they know that we're just trying to filter as much as we can for them into the classroom. We're just trying to keep a steady course and not jump into other things and change course too fast. So it's just it's taken a lot of front office administrative work this year than we ever expected. So evaluations, will happen. They're just done very differently and shortly. So I think I've gone over that, but I look forward to talking with all the teachers one-on-one at some point and staff. So I did want to share with you this YMPA. It's taking shape again. We just don't have the time to develop every resource in the quality that we want, but here's a sample from Miss Heidi's class. And she, and amongst others, we have probably about 30, 40 different video clips I've collected so far that needs to go into what it's like to be in a Montessori school. And guess what? Life is going on. Look at this class operating. They're doing Montessori work in a pandemic. And so I actually sent Lisa a sample of all the videos I've been collecting on this project. And it's good stuff. We just need the time to weave it all together into a pretty cool video. So Miss Lisa, you got anything to add to that?
No, some of these photos though are just, they'll make your little Montessori heart swell.
Yeah, no, that one was just too adorable right there.
Yeah, no, there's some really great ways that just capture not just a Montessori classroom, but the spirit of MPA and how we can put those on our website so that any prospective parents or parents that just want to glimpse inside what their child's doing during the day, that would be a great resource to add. So we'll get there.
We'll get there. Yep,
Yeah.
little by little.
I reached out to Lisa because I'm on the Facebook page. I follow the Facebook page or whatever, the posts, and it is so cool just to be not. It is really cool to go through your Facebook feed and see our school. These posts where you see the pictures of the kids and they're doing something in whosever classroom it is, and for us that go here and are part of this community, we know how that feels. But I'm excited that other people that aren't yet part of the community, they're going to feel that when they see that too. So I know it's a busy year, but it's amazing, and thank you so much for those efforts.
You bet. Well, we'll get there. It'll take us a while, but there's so much to say about what goes on, and we have to try to tell a story with video and pictures, and it'll be great when it's done. I don't know if it's ever done, but at least our first round of it, it'll be good. I'm going to hurry on here because my time is over, but we got to redo a little bit of playground safety. We've had a lot of head bumps in the last couple of weeks. It's just going to be, I think we'll move our trainings to the beginning of the year around playground. And instead of mid-year like last year, we did one, I think it was about January, February. We decided to bring it back again a year later. It's not something that we really had our focus on about back in August. We were just trying to figure out how to open up the school in a pandemic. And so we had to bring that back. Intent to return, yes. Staff need to give Amy and I that information here by March so that we can kind of understand any hiring needs. If we have any surprises and people we didn't know we're thinking about not returning, things like that. And then, we're working on an induction process. We've had a few staff members wind up being on an initial certification twice. And that's because the first go around, say 4 or 5, remember CD licenses last 5 years. So if you back up 5 years, someone from 2016, 2015 at MPA was not getting any information from Jeffco or the school about induction, and then it kind of hangs up their recertification process with the state. So we gotta support our teachers that need to do that to get to a professional license, not an initial license. And it's sad. We got a few staff that are seasoned veterans, but yet they're still on an initial license just because of lack of connection with Jeffco to make that happen. So we're trying to fix that. Enroll Jeffco February 22nd. Calendar. Let's jump into that. I think I already have it brought up here. After going roundtable, getting feedback from staff, and then giving me feedback, we decided to simplify it even more for this round. We really tried to line it up a lot more with Jeffco, but yet have some unique parts in here that fit us. And I think we've done our math right. We don't really want to do remote snow days next year. That's really hard for us to try to push out 200 Chromebooks the night before a snowstorm. We're just not a one-to-one school. A lot of Jeffco schools are a one-to-one device school, and that's theirs. But we're a Montessori school, and we'll do one-to-one at some point, 4th, 5th, and 6th grade. But we had to kind of build in enough snow days for next year and things like that. So I don't know what the pandemic's going to bring, if we need to amend this in July again, but I think we have a pretty good base calendar that's been looked at by a lot of eyes. And Lisa, do you have any quick comments on this?
No, I did take a good look. we are in compliance for instructional hours and contact days. From a board perspective, I know we care about that, so I'll say check and check. No, it aligns closely with Jeffco in a lot of areas. There are a couple of days where Jeffco is out and we are in. I know that's kind of a unique, normally it's flip-flopped, but
Right.
I think one of it being we kind of front end our winter break, meaning we wouldn't come the 20th and 21st of December. Instead, we'd choose to come back the 5th of January, whereas they would be in session the 20th and 21st, and then they don't come back till the 6th, I believe. So little things like that, like you said, unique to MPA, but overall, I mean, again, from a compliance standpoint, it looks great. And I don't think it's too terribly confusing, too terribly different from Jeffco to cause confusion.
Sure.
Yep.
Thanks, Lisa. So, Jack, I don't know if we want to vote on this or we want the board to look at it more and wait till March. It's up to you.
Well, let me put it this way. Does anybody on the board feel like they need more time to analyze this prior to a vote?
No, I feel comfortable.
My only question was that we made sure that we had the assistance days corrected, and I think Amy and Brian figured that out. So.
Yeah, we added their start date, but in their contract themselves, they will have, because they work 3 days less than leads, and so that'll be outlined a little bit more. I couldn't put everything on a calendar, but yeah, we added in their start date and stuff, and then the rest of the information will be in their contracts. So, and we're good at communicating. We'd let them know. So.
Yeah. Any snow days baked in?
Oh yeah, quite a few.
Okay.
Yeah, minimum 2, but really, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Lisa, I think we have about 5 to 6 snow days.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Push comes to shove 5, but
Right.
that would be meeting the bare minimum of instructional hours if we took all 5 of those. And
Okay.
I think a couple years ago we decided it's better to have like a good cushion on your instructional hours should an audit take place.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Right. Anyone want to make a motion to approve? Or not approve, I guess.
I move we approve the 2021-2022 school academic calendar.
Second.
As proposed. All right. So roll call, Jack Llewellyn,
Yes.
Becky Springstead,
Yes.
Brandon Smith,
Yes.
Lisa Myers, yes, Brittany Horseman,
Yes.
Robin Morrissey,
Yes.
Beth McDonald,
Yes.
Carmen Center,
Yes.
and Christina Grant.
Yes.
And that motion passes.
Sweet. All right, that way we can start getting this out, especially to our new families, our current families, about when school, what school looks like next year. So great, thank you. Appreciate that. And again, if we need to change something because of something weren't aware of yet, we can do that as well. Middle school planning, our next meeting is coming up. Before I get too far down this road, we opened up MPA North on Friday. Upper team and homeschool went over at 2 o'clock. Jack came on over as well. And so they had an hour to kind of walk around the building, check it out. And then at 3 o'clock, any other staff members that want to come and see the building. And we got some big posters, and we're collecting some feedback, not only on the main campus upgrades, like the outdoor learning spaces. We do have one of the front vestibule, and then we have a landscape poster, and then an interior architectural poster of MPA North. And so once I collect that this week, I'll push all the feedback. I've been getting some emails, some sticky notes. I'll push it all over to the board. And but Christina, I think it was a pretty rich discussion our last middle school meeting. What are your thoughts?
I thought it was. I sent out those minutes and the video if anybody, or the recording if anybody wanted to watch it. But I thought it was a great starting conversation in our meeting, and then the follow up at the in-service, right, hearing what teachers were thinking and just watching them ideas starting to flow was really valuable.
Yeah, and we'll just keep planning. I do plan to go talk to 4th, 5th, and 6th graders about their thoughts. Now that I got my big posters, I'm going to go to each class probably next week and collect what students are thinking, and then bring that back to the focus group. And then really our next step after that is to pull some parents into the mix, and we'll just keep going and see where it leads us. All right.
And Brian, would have, my perception was that the response from staff was overwhelmingly positive, and when you kind of walk through there and you look at the plans and if anything, we're going to have too many ideas on things that we can do as opposed to the other way around. Is that accurate?
Of course. I think right now I'm just trying to explain to everyone, we just want some bare bones. Staff loves to getting in, where's this going to be? What's that? So a lot of these questions are for after the construction starts and we're going down that path of opening. That's where you can really start to fine tune it. A lot of people want to have these conversations about the fine tuning, and we're just not there yet. So,
Brian, I got an update today that they want to wrap up the construction documents on March 12th so that they can get it out to bidding process. So if there's any possibility, I hate to put in time, but if there's any possibility to get that feedback, by the first week of March, so that I can, we can as a group get that to them. Sure. Anything that needs to be changed or anything like that.
You bet. I'll have that to you next week. Okay.
Hey, and then while we're on the subject, Brittany, not to kick the dead horse too many times, but as I told Brian, my biggest fear in life at the moment is that we start doing all this and we all get excited and Jeffco says something that's not wonderfully positive on the zoning. So I really want to try to figure out how to get that going sooner rather than later.
Right, and I can talk to you about that because John's last email to me was that he was reaching out to you by email with further updates on that. And that was January 20th that he said that. So I hadn't heard back, so I assumed that he said I thought that had already happened because he responded, but I didn't know.
Okay.
I will follow up again tomorrow morning.
And we'll circle back. We don't have to take up too much time, but I don't want there to be an October surprise that something's wrong or something else.
No.
So,
hey, but if you don't hear back, I'll follow up tomorrow morning. But if you don't hear back in 2 days, let me know so I can keep going on it.
Thank you.
I assumed it had been taken care of. Sorry.
No, it's fine. Thank you. I appreciate it. Like I say,
No, I agree.
I'm nervous.
Yeah.
Ryan and I have a call with John and Val tomorrow. Do you want us to bring that up?
Yes, please.
Okay.
Yep, we can bring that up because I agree with Jack. That makes me nervous. So we need to.
Yeah, I mean, everything we've been told is that it's going to be fine. But again, that's the one intangible that we don't control at the present time, and that's not a good thing. So I appreciate everybody's efforts if we can push that a little bit harder so that we can get back to them.
Okay. We can
Also,
do that.
Jack, too, I do just want it to be on everyone's back burner too. Licensing has to be involved, so we need to put that somewhere in the schedule as well of approving that space for licensing.
Yeah, absolutely. But we have to do and it has to be one after the other. And, technically, we're a little bit behind where we should be. And I won't go into a whole lot more detail, but I've been told not to worry about that. Everything's fine. But we just, again, the sooner we get that done, the sooner we can start doing the financing, the sooner we can all stop talking about it. So.
We'll,
Okay.
Amy
Thanks,
and I
Brian.
we'll make John aware of the licensing concern too on the outdoor learning spaces on the main campus. So we'll add that to our agenda as well.
I'm going to forward you, Brian and Jack. I'm just going to cut the the 2 or 3 sentences that John addressed last about the site plan, just so you have it and you can pick up that conversation at the
Okay.
meeting.
Perfect. Thank you. Just for the sake of time, I'm just going to say, aftercare is running. I'm going to the bottom of the financials, work my way up.
Can I just say, Brian?
Sure.
Because I've got a daughter who's in the aftercare, who I will readily admit was like, "No, I don't want to go to aftercare this year. Please don't let me go. Can I stay longer at aftercare?" So most days she's really loved it. She thinks it's great now. And some of that is that her friends are there and it works out well. But from the anecdotal evidence from 1 3rd grader is that it's working really well, and and that's a good thing.
Yeah, I mean, Lori and her team, they're just doing a great job. We just could not find enough preschoolers to create an aftercare program just for preschool. And that's partly because families had already found what they needed for the year. So, but we're pretty confident of opening a full program for all ages before and after school for next year. So that's good. We're still waiting on grant outcomes as well as more information. So you can see those 2 grants we're waiting on. Finance committee at the moment's kind of on hold until we get more information from the state legislature on PPR and then also from Jeffco, our purchase service agreement. Fees are going up, and so we want to know what impact on fees with Jeffco is going to impact our revenue. And then, Amy, do you want me to do any part on financials right now or wait till later in the, what do you think?
It's up to you guys. And Brittany, if we want to just go for it, we can just get it out of the way.
Yeah, and I would just preface it by saying that when we had the finance committee, budgets are normally this time of the year, it's normally a evolving process anyway as you wait for enrollment to come in and all that stuff. But this year it's extra complicated, and we just the consensus was that we could put something together, but it wouldn't be based on actual information. It wouldn't be based on, the PPR hasn't been decided. That'll be, March or early April. Jeffco hasn't come out with their fees yet. So no, we don't know what those costs will be. Enrollment is still evolving. And so to put something really together to vote on or something seemed a little bit pointless at this time when we do have the, Brian and Amy and everybody else on the finance committee was comfortable with a 30-day delay, that it wouldn't put a wrench in contracts or anything like that. So that was our recommendation to the board and our explanation for why we thought we should pause it for 30 days before presenting anything solid.
Okay. Does anyone have questions on the financial statements that Amy included. I have the links here. Is there any questions on those documents that I need to open them or field any question?
I do have one update on the 5B monies, is we still have 2 outstanding invoices for $102,000. We're going through the process of getting those paid through 5B funds, but since there's so much paperwork involved, and if you were on the JCS meeting, they talked about how hard that process is. So I'm going to go ahead and pay those out of the general fund right now, and we're going to get them paid back to the general fund this school year by 5B. It's just going to take another 6 weeks to get those paid out with this whole process, and we didn't want HCM to have to wait another two months to get paid. So that will actually come out of that dollar amount that was on there, 1 whatever million that was. So
Amy, and just to point out, not all of those funds, they're listed as 5B, but they're also broken out by category, which the process and what we can spend that money on is different. Some of those funds, like the refinance funds, are not really 5B funds. They're not as restricted as, say, the 3 million or whatever that we got from the district. That was from the voters, but it's all been added into that bucket because it's for capital improvements and those sorts of things. Right. I would, in your meeting tomorrow with John, and I sent them in anticipation, seeing that HCM bid that was included in the packet, for us to decide on tonight.
Yep.
I had some questions about that, about the dollars in there, and I reached out to John to kind of get his take on, and Valerie on that bid. And when we get to that, we'll get to that. But it would be kind of nice to see if you have that, what we've paid totally to HCM to date. So we can get an idea of the percentage of the total budget that we have, how much is going to HCM, because I kind of want to keep track of if there was any loss due to our pivot when we bought the building and what that number is, so we can keep track of that. Does that make sense?
Yep, I can tell you that. So you want to know, since this all started, how much we've paid to them?
Yeah, and if there's, I don't think there's anything outstanding that we owe them.
Yeah, there's 2 that I just mentioned. There's 48,000 from September and 54,000 from November and December, totaling 102,000.
But besides that, there's
That's
not
it.
anything else, right? So
No.
So if we can add that to what we've paid, and then plus the 40, plus the 45 that they're quoting for the construction phase of the process, we'll get an idea of the total amount that we will be owing them for this entire project.
Yep. Okay. I'll get you a total amount by the time we get to that.
Thank you. I just want to make sure that things aren't going so quickly that we're not keeping track of. And you see them every day, Amy. I just don't see them every day, so that's why.
Yeah.
I know I had to approve that one bill today. I was like, oof, that's a big check. Amy's got everything organized, and it's hard to make decisions when you have an incomplete picture. We have incomplete numbers right now. And that's not due to us, that's just due to the external forces out there. So keep asking the questions, and by March it should be a much clearer picture, not only construction, but school finance and everything. Cool, moving on. And most of this is just real surface level. Next, accountability committees coming up. And I put the notes in here so you can see what Beth and I worked on with the committee. Beth, do you have anything to add about SAC?
No, I think, I don't know. I think we had a really productive meeting. And I think we've got a lot to cover at our next meeting.
Right.
Are you still on track? I know we were expecting to see the draft UIP this week.
Yeah, hopefully by Friday I can send it out.
Yeah, that way we can try to wrap that up next week. And then also we were talking about the parent survey. And I know that Lisa sent me the survey from last year, so I do have that, and I'll bring that to the table.
Okay. Yeah, the SAC committee is actually going to be meeting quite a bit between now and next August, because they're changing the timelines in which next year we have to have the UIP ready to go. Basically, we're going to wrap this one up, and then we'll go into another planning phase a little bit over the summer, and then try to launch an updated UIP for all of next school year, so that there's not such a big gap of time between the time you write an UIP, which is old data, it's cold data. Now they're pushing it to more the start of school, that you got to have your UIP submitted to the state. So it's a little change in our timeline. So normally after about February, SAC committees kind of go dormant for a while, but not us. We're going to have to keep working through the spring. So just for the change. Yeah, remote learning survey data is already out, so I'll get you all that. And just FYI, ESSER 2 funds, there's a lot of talk in the district, a lot of talk in charters, that any kiddo that was any students that got impacted heavily by the pandemic, either just because of remote or just being bounced in and out of school too much, or several quarantines, illness. Every family is a little bit different on the effects, that we might and should consider a possible skill builders type kind of summer school, and not rely just on Jeffco's summer school. We can still use it, but I'll bring forward some ideas later in March, April, and kind of look at what kind of interest do we have, what kind of numbers of kiddos, and is it feasible to run a summer school despite having construction on our property. That's why I said maybe we can put it in a tent building, not sure. So anyway, we should really talk about it as a board, but later on, once we get a clearer picture of how to pay for it. So that's what I got, friends. Any questions?
Brian, can I throw out too, if we're looking to recoup any funds, I feel like maybe a summer camp. And I don't know if your staff would be interested that does the aftercare. I know some schools in the area do provide some kind of, at school summer camp. Mm-hmm. But I could see interest there if it's
right. Okay. Yeah, I can talk with Lori. I think the other thing too is with a little bit of the work going on in the school around the front office, anything that we're going to run on the campus would have to be a different entrance. Number two, we'd have to check with John from DCS on any kind of disruptions to power, water, any of the basic services that schools have to provide students to be open. So I'd have to really kind of check on the construction side to see, and just make sure it's safe too. So that's why I'm kind of leaning towards the tent building for either summer camp or summer school. But yeah, let me start the conversation first with John and the construction plan. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. Thanks, Becky.
Mr. Brian, real quick, regarding vaccinations for staff, and I apologize, I haven't been following Colorado's rollout plan as closely as other states where my parents live, but do you feel that staff who are interested in getting the vaccination have the resources? Meaning, you mentioned there was a Saturday clinic, great, but my concern is if you can only get it during the school day, do you have enough substitutes to cover to allow these teachers to go get these? Is there something we as a board can do to support that, or do you feel like the process is going as best it can? And
well, yes, there's probably always going to be staff that need it on other days. That's the problem, is we're down to 2 substitutes. That's all we got.
Okay.
So that's a problem. Staff's pretty good. They understand. Well,
Okay.
If Kaiser and again, King Supers is in the mix now. I mean,
Okay.
there's so many other places that you can have your name on. I mean, we got
Okay.
children's, you name it. So there's some staff, you know, like last week had their name out to like 3-4 different places trying to find the first available.
Okay.
But I do think most staff could get it on the weekends over the
Okay.
next 3 weeks here. So
Okay. That's good to hear. I wasn't sure if that was even an option or if we needed to look
yeah, they're
to find ways to
through
support them.
Kaiser. It's a very dedicated. If you're not in the 1B subgroup as an educator,
Mhm.
those cannot be given other than to say the elderly.
Mhm.
That's a dedicated 3-week focus. So, yep.
Okay. Okay.
Christine is really trying to encourage the staff to go get it done now, because once this window of educators passes, now you're into the next group of competition to get it. So,
Okay.
yep. So good question.
Good to hear. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks. All right. Well, Jack, we did knock out quite a bit of the agenda.
We sure did, and I appreciate it. And always, you know, the idea is to put as much into your report, and then we pick up the rest. So I appreciate everything that you shared. Christina, do you want to talk about anything with respect to the middle school planning and the process that we haven't already talked about?
I think we covered most of it. I took down a note for the March 12th date for the building design stuff. I do think our next meeting on the 2nd, our next working session, we'll try to get into some details there to help inform that as well. And then aside from that, we're just planning to meet that monthly cadence with Jack and I representing, so we can do those working sessions and bring that back to the general meeting. But just a good start. If there's any questions, I just would open it to that. I think we covered everything else.
Yeah, and as Christina noted, it works out okay. We've had her and I have been on the meetings, and will be. There's always that tension of, are you flirting with open records laws and things? I don't think we would be, but at the moment, this is the safer approach. And so, but at the same point in time, we want it to be completely open and transparent. So, to the extent anybody has thoughts, concerns, questions, etc., reach out at any time, obviously.
Agreed. Yeah, and as we put together agendas for those upcoming meetings, I can send that out beforehand to the board. So if there are questions, either we can chat or send those questions, and we'll represent them back into the working session group and keep that feedback loop, and sending out the recording to the board, of course.
And again, I'll reiterate that I thought the energy on Friday when everybody was over there was really positive.
Yeah, it was. It was great. It was so
you
fun.
just get the sense of, when people really understand the possibilities and what can happen, and kind of the tangible, okay, we're walking around with blueprints. Here's where, a classroom is going to be. Okay, now this is getting cool. So I'm really happy about it. And again, just anecdotally talking to a few parents who have kids in lower to middle upper L, shall we say that the idea of having middle school coming up has been warmly received. So a lot of work to do, I think we've got, I don't want to sugarcoat it, because I think we're going to have some really big decisions on focus, and kind of the approach, and some lengthy discussions on that coming forward at some point. But for now, kind of with the planning process and stuff, it's a good thing. That's exciting. It's positive. And I'm one of these people who believes that, especially the last few months, some positive is good. Okay. Brittany, anything we need to talk about with respect to construction and stuff that we haven't already talked about? I love this approach to the agenda.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, hold on here.
Anything that Brian hasn't already covered.
Hold on. Can you guys hear me?
Mhm.
Okay, because it says I was still muted, even though, anyway. I just would update on the, March 12th, they're going to submit out to bidding. So again, we're still on the timeline. By April, we should have numbers. And I also reached out to John and Valerie today to ask them to circle up with everybody to set a meeting so that we can develop a list of a wish list. So as we go through the bidding process, if we need to make decisions about, well, we can actually add 2 things. Well, what are those 2 things going to be? Where's that going to go? So I thought it would be good to add that too. So hopefully by April, we'll have the numbers and some type of wish list to prioritize where dollars are going to go. That's it.
Amy, do you want to get approval on the 2 outstanding invoices?
Yes, and then also, I don't know the process because Brittany's done it before on, in order for us to then get fees paid from 5B, the board has to approve the, I guess it's expansion proposal.
Yeah.
That way the district gets that and knows that the board approved it, and then they will start paying funds from 5B for this project. That's listed on here.
And I actually reached out to John and Valerie about this invoice, like I said, to kind of get their, is this reasonable? Is this in line with what we should be seeing? So it looks like the number that Amy just gave me plus this new invoice would be the architects from the beginning of the project, including all the way through the end, would be around the 10% mark, which is reasonable and actually a little bit low, I think, from what I've been told. So, but John and Valerie gave their blessing for the invoice and thought that we should sign it. I did ask about the $14,000 in project management because I thought, well, that's what John and Valerie are. But this is so I wanted to understand more of the details of that. So they responded back, and if you had looked at that, why it's $14,000 for that. That's for just HCM being on site, going through the construction process. Beth, you know better than that, but signing off that things are being built as to the plans and those sorts of things. So they thought that was reasonable as well. So 2 cents in case you had any questions about that. I'm happy to, you can send them directly to John if you don't think we can approve it tonight, but otherwise there's no concern by them in signing this.
Okay, so it seems to me we've got 2 different issues. So the first is, approval or not of the invoices. Does anybody need more information, time, questions, etc.? If not, does anybody have a motion? Anyone at all?
Oh, I'll move. We're just going to move to approve the invoices, correct? Out of the general fund?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the 48,000 and the 54,000, and then before this fiscal year ends, they'll be taken from 5B and put back into general fund.
Okay. I move that.
Second.
All right.
Yes.
All right. Jack Llewellyn.
Yes.
Becky Springstead.
Yes.
Brandon Smith.
Yes.
Lisa Myers. Yes. Brittany Horseman.
Yes.
Robin Morrissey.
Yes.
Beth McDonald.
Yes.
Carmen Center.
Yes.
And Christina Grant.
Yes.
Motion passes.
All right, and then I think we need a broader motion with respect to the use of 5B funds for how do you, Amy, tell us how we need to phrase it so that it meets the requirements.
I would say approve the MPA expansion project February 11th to HCM for $45,000 out of 5B funds.
Okay.
Can we move that again?
Second.
I do think that we should approve the new cost estimate for the additional expansion to be paid out of the 5B funds.
I second.
All right. Roll call number 3. Here we go. Jack Llewellyn,
Yes.
Becky Springstead,
Yes.
Brandon Smith,
Yes.
Lisa Myers, yes. Brittany Horseman,
Yes.
Robin Morrissey,
Yes.
Beth McDonald,
Yes.
Carmen Center,
Yes.
and Christina Grant.
Yes.
And that motion passes.
Okay. Anything else we need to talk about with respect to MPA North construction at this time? Oh, okay. Moving on, school calendar and vote. Did we vote on that? We did. All right. We just wanted to raise, Brian, we wanted to raise the issue of preschool tuition and registration just to see to what extent we needed to discuss and or approve that at this time. Just something we didn't want to get lost in the shuffle, so to speak.
Finance committee talked a little bit about this. What was our percent of thinking around that, Amy?
It was going with the 5% that was
5%.
approved last year, but we didn't end up going with that because of the pandemic. And so the finance committee spoke about reinstating that to be approved to happen for 2020, 2021, because our rates are pretty low. We haven't, I guess it'll be 5 years now that we haven't increased tuition, so we're kind of behind the track on that. And that's just for preschool tuition. The registration fees, we're kind of still going over with the teachers, and I would say that we're probably going to keep them about what they were this year, just kind of not knowing what's going on. So I think the tuition is the biggest one that we would, like to
Right.
bring up.
I think the finance committee felt pretty strongly that 5% just needs to happen.
Yeah, I second that was the consensus when everyone weighed in. And it was still that we're still below, even with that 5%, we're still below comparatively.
Yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right.
And that's to surrounding preschools and the other Montessori schools, charter schools.
So, sorry, refresh my memory. I feel like there was a vote last year
Yep.
to increase it, and then we chose not to implement it. Is that correct? Okay, I'm
Correct.
sorry. Okay, I was like, I feel like I've had this conversation before. Okay, thank you.
Right. Any more discussion on that issue? Brittany, want to make a motion?
Do we need to actually vote on that, or is that just part of the budget when we approve the budget? Do we need an actual vote on that?
The benefit of doing it now is that we can tell the incoming preschoolers.
Oh, okay.
The rates change, so that would be
Okay.
nice.
Yeah, I move to adopt the recommended rate for the preschool for the 2021-2022 school year proposed by the finance committee.
Second.
Second.
All right. Brittany has long motions. It's not a bad thing. Okay. All right.
That's a short one, no?
I know.
It's the lawyers on the board that have the long
Comparatively,
one.
yes, it was. All right. Roll call. Jack Llewellyn,
Yes.
Becky Springstead,
Yes.
Brandon Smith,
Yes.
Lisa Myers, yes. Brittany Horseman,
Yes.
and Robin Morrissey,
Yes.
Beth McDonald,
Yes.
Carmen Center,
Yes.
and Christina Grant.
Yes.
All right, that motion passes.
All right, so I think that covers that subject. Christina, anything you want to talk about with respect to elections? Recognizing that we have a couple people on this call who may not be running for re-election.
I think the same thing as last month would be just the recruitment piece. I still need to kind of sync up. Lisa, I'd like to try and sync up. I was doing the middle school stuff, so maybe I can touch base with you and we'll sync up. Folks still recruiting, but we won't really start kicking off since the process is so much faster now until next month, I think.
So what you're saying is you really won't start begging for people until next month?
Yeah, whatever it takes to sort of sucker folks into their time here. So yeah, start thinking about whether it's
rumor has it we're going to need a new secretary,
do.
So somebody who can type is important.
Or you can even handwrite them. I mean, they eventually have to be typed.
All right, budget and finance. Brittany, Amy, we kind of went over a lot of stuff. Anything in addition?
I don't think so. No.
Okay. Great. Committee reports. What do we have? SAC we've already talked about, right? Finance we talked about. Anybody else have a committee they feel a need to talk about? Okay.
I can give you a quick PTA. They meet last month, and they're kind of struggling with this balance of should we do more fundraising when we're not spending money on our school and our kids at this point? Because you can't just keep bringing in money and not having anything going out to the school and the community. So they're going to stop most of the fundraising efforts that are typically done in the spring until we can get some kind of school activities going. They are trying to figure out a fund to replace the activities that they used to do for the socials at the end of the year. So they're trying to come up with some things like possible trivia nights, movie nights, dance party, all sorts of things that are being thrown around to try to have something that brings those different levels together and communities together. So I thought that was a good thing. They're doing voting as well. So they need to have their votes done for a president and secretary role by March. And then they added an additional passive fundraiser for AFW. I think that came out today on the Facebook page as well. So that's it.
I say, tangential to this only slightly, but I read something on the web today about high school students, especially like juniors and seniors or last year seniors, feeling like all the joy that goes at being in high school, which is supposed to be, I'm told, didn't actually experience it, but for, a great time in your life and, graduation, all that, and how all that's being stolen. God, I hope we can get back to that. And and the same thing, I mean, the barbecue last year with everybody in the bouncy house and everything. And I remember going and my daughter was like, I don't really want to go. I see these people every day at school. And, 3 hours later, it's like, okay, I'm going to tie your hands behind your back and force you into the car if we, So anyways, I applaud anything PTA can do to make things seem happier for everybody.
Yeah.
Which was completely gratuitous, but thank you for indulging me. Monthly meetings. We got PTA. Jeffco, Brandon sent out a long list of kind of the things that they've talked about recently.
It was all budgets and COVID and shortfalls in the budgets and figuring out how to go back to in-person, and lots of parents really, really, really wanting to go to in-person. So I think that what we did to push for in-person as quickly as possible. Thanks to the teachers and the staff and Mr. Bryan for making that happen, because we didn't take any heat for not going back in person. So the Jeffco board was not so lucky.
Right. Brittany, JCSC?
I think we covered most of it. Just they do have the ESSER funds in hand, the district. They're just ESSER 2, the second round. The indication is it's 3 times more than what we got in the first round per school. They're just waiting for confirmation to how they're going to divvy that up. I don't, unless Brian sees it differently, I don't see it happening different than how they divvied it up last time. But they are trying to add HVAC and some expenses onto that ESSER funds, what they're approved for, which is good for us. Hopefully that will go through, and then maybe that will be just one more thing that's possible that we can use the funds for if there's some available for that, not for something else that's needed.
Board calendar. Christina, do you happen to have that handy?
Oh man, I was slacking. Let me open let me open that up while we hit the next.
All right, we're gonna slip over to the consent agenda real quick. Has everybody had a chance to look at the January 19, 2021, excuse me, general board meeting minutes? Any comments, concerns, corrections, edits? If not, can we have a motion?
I move we
Move
approve.
to approve
Oh, there you go. Go for it.
last month's meeting minutes.
I
Is that enough?
second. Yep. Jack Llewellyn,
Yes.
Becky Springstead,
Yes.
Brandon Smith,
Yes.
Lisa Myers, yes. Brittany Horseman,
Yes.
Robin Morrissey,
Yes.
Beth McDonald,
Yes.
Carmen Center,
Yeah.
and Christina Grant.
Yes.
All right. Those minutes are approved.
And then swing back to board calendar.
Yes. Let's see. In March we have updating the board orientation handbooks. I don't know if that's on anyone's radar yet, or if we need to take a look at updating that, or if there is anything at the moment we need to really modify there. Conducting the board meeting. Let's see. Review, approve, submit budget. We've already talked about budget. Completing the parent and staff surveys. I think we talked about that for on a couple of fronts. And then our strategic plan process, feeling fairly up to date on that. If anyone has questions, we can take a look at that in more detail. But that is, submit any proposed bylaw, policy, and procedure changes. Very, very exciting things. So is there any suggested policy, procedure, or bylaw changes for this year that we want to consider as we go into the strategic retreat in summer?
Certainly none I can think of, but I will also make an effort to go back and reread and review everything this month, just to make sure.
Okay. Yeah, let's make maybe that a point for next month, just
Yep.
something to consider if there's anything really critical we need to think about right now, but I don't think of anything off the top of my head either.
Okay. I have one closing comment, but before I do that, does anybody else have anything they want to raise, address, talk about that hasn't been covered? No? Okay. Then with that, before we adjourn, but get ready, Christina.
Always.
You know, I was talking to another board member today, and you know, sometimes I think it's really important for us to go back and look at where we are and where we've come from. For some of us, we joined in a very tumultuous time, and a time where, not ascribing any fault to anybody, but meetings weren't necessarily focused. Um, Administration wasn't necessarily trusted. Meetings ran a long time. Meetings could be contentious, and not a whole lot was getting accomplished that was really good for the school. And maybe that's a little overstating it, but I think those of you who are around understand what I'm saying. And one of the things that I think is a testament to where we're at is that we had, in my mind, we're at an hour and a half of a really good board meeting. We have a principal and a staff that do a really good job, and that allows us to do what we're supposed to do, which is to monitor and to do what board functions are, and not to try and run a school or anything else. And so, sometimes a couple weeks ago or a couple months ago when we had a short meeting, I kind of made a joke, and afterwards I thought, that was a kind of a crappy thing to say, because it's not a bad thing if you have a short meeting. It's a good thing. And I know that any one of us, we're all on different committees. Becky does the PTA. I drug Isabel out to go to the church on Friday afternoon, her day off from school. We all do different things, and everybody puts in a lot of effort. And it shows in how things are going along, and the fact that the school is running as well as it is under all these circumstances. And I thought it was important that we all take note of, the fact that we're doing a damn good job. And again, I go back to, we got really, those of us who were around during the process, we got really lucky in hiring Brian. And I'm thankful on a daily basis that it didn't go some of the other ways it could have gone. But I think the fact that we're where we're at, we've gone through the pandemic. Think about it. Last March, did anybody think we'd still be dealing with this? Did anybody think we'd still be wearing masks a year later? And we've done a great job. And I don't want to. I've gone on too long already, but I just want to say thank you to everybody who's put in so much effort and thought and heart and soul into this. And again, thank you to the teachers and the staff and to Brian. And no, I'm done. Thank you.
Nice. I motion for Jack to play some Springsteen. I've been staring at it all night.
Hey, they had a concert. They had a concert on Saturday night from Asbury Park. I was playing loud here. So, all right, Christina, you're up.
I would move that we adjourn for the
And
night.
shut Jack up.